Good morning. Welcome in to Tiger Tuesday Recruiting here on PowerMizzou.com, brought to you by Brandon Barnes and USA Mortgage. You looking for some sort of mortgage advice, refinance? Maybe you're buying a house. Maybe you just moved and 9 months later you got fired and now you got to move again and you need a new house in the state of Missouri somewhere. Brandon Barnes can help you out. He's the guy to go to, the best customer service, the best rates you're going to find. If you need any sort of mortgage advice, you give Brandon a call there at 573-818-2772 or 573-590-0001. You can go to showmemortgage.com and get a free online quote. Anything you need, just give Brandon a shot. I would bet that he will win you over and win your business if you are in the market for such things. And we are now going to bring Sean Williams onto the screen and into the show to talk a little Mizzou recruiting. Sean, I don't know, we could spend another 20 minutes like needlessly talking about what we think Luther Burden might or might not do. That doesn't particularly appeal to me, but if that's what you want to do, go ahead.
First off, I really hope you have me on mute during your intro because I laughed out loud and I snorted a little bit because you threw in like a little bit of a jab to the firing of Jethro Franklin there.
That could have applied to anybody, Sean. Maybe that didn't have to do with Jethro Franklin. Other people lost jobs on Sunday. And, like, look, I do want to be clear. Like, I'm not making light of it. It sucks to lose a job.
Right.
But, yeah.
Right. But, yeah, that's probably what we're going to be talking about because, look, not necessarily the Franklin firing, even though we are going to talk about that, but it kind of correlates with just how bad Missouri looked on Saturday against Tennessee. They gave up a lot of yards. They can't stop anybody in the run. Now you got to, people are going to wonder, if this keeps up, in the next, look, they play North Texas. Surely they can win that game, right? Okay, so, but if they keep it up against SEC competition and their defense continues to look bad and they pack up some L's, people are going to start wondering, well, what's going to happen with this recruiting class? And that's, that's going to be the talk if that continues. So we'll see if things continue to improve on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, they made a move in that direction. We'll see if that helps or hurts or what. Right. We'll see.
I don't know how it can hurt. I don't know how it can get worse. But let's start kind of big picture, and then we'll zero in and get a little more specific as we go along. And I do want to say, if you guys are on here watching live, feel free, comments and questions, throw them up there. We will get to them over the course of the next 20 or 30 minutes. I see Justin already has a comment and a question, and we will get to them. So throw them up there, and we appreciate you guys who are watching along live. But, Sean, I want to start with this. You've been covering recruiting for quite a few years for quite a few different schools. I've at least kind of dabbled in recruiting now for close to 2 decades, and when you talk to the kids, and it not specific to Missouri or anything like that, but when you talk to kids who are going through the recruiting process, how often do you hear them reference either a team's record or, a specific game, or how often is, man, they aren't as good as I thought they were going to be, and that's a factor in my decision come up?
A lot of you bring up a good point, but a lot of times you don't hear that a whole lot, right. Unless you're talking to a commitment specifically about the season. What do you think about Vanderbilt's season or Missouri's season, et cetera? All these teams that I cover, but they might mention the record and they'd be like, well, they look, even though the record might be bad and they might be playing bad, they're still going to spin it in a positive way, because look, they don't want to really give away. Or don't really want to say, hey, they don't look good. Maybe I'm looking around. Right. They're not going to really kind of throw all the cards on the table and kind of let that. They're for the most part they're pretty positive. And look, you can. If a team is having a bad season, kids can look at that in the positive too. It's like, well, hey, I can come in and play right away, and help rebuild this team into a winner. So, you can kind of see it 2 ways. But a lot of times when you're talking to kids, they don't really talk about all the teams playing a little bit better. They might frame it as they're having a down season, but I see a lot of upside there. I believe in the coaches, things like that. So they'll usually spin it in a positive way. But yeah, you can see it 2 ways in the kids' eyes. It's like, oh man, they're having a bad season. But look, if you're having a bad season and you've got other teams, starting to reach out to you towards the November, things like that, saying, hey, get on campus. We might want to see you. You know, if we want to check you out, want to see you in person, maybe we'll offer you or whatever. Yeah, it becomes pretty tempting.
Well, and the truth is, these kids pay far less attention to the games than we do. I mean, not just media, fans. I mean, these kids, they don't watch that many games. I've had recruits tell me, I don't really watch college football all that much. You know, I mean, now that's not to say they have no idea that Missouri laid an egg last weekend. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it doesn't make maybe as big a difference on one particular day or even in one particular season as a lot of people do, because I've always said, as a coach, you have two things to sell. You're either selling, we're really good, come help us stay really good, or we're not really good, come help make us be really good. I mean, that's it. Those are the only two recruiting pitches there are. And, Sean, we know for a fact, last year's class, so the kids that are true freshmen this year, the Missouri coaches were very honest with them. We know that. We have been told, hey, we're not selling these kids on we're going to be great this year. They were told last year, hey, don't judge us on our record. And I think probably this year's class is being told a little bit of the same. Like, hey, you know, they're not being sold on we're going to be 10-2 and win the SEC East this year. I mean, Eli Drinkwitz and his staff, I think, have been fairly honest with these kids about where they're at in the process, and that's a big part of the reason that we've tried to be fairly honest with people since before this season started, saying, yo, check your expectations a little bit. It didn't work, but they knew to some extent that, I don't want to say they knew Saturday was possible, but they knew that a season that maybe didn't quite meet fans' expectations was possible.
Right. I think, you know, you kind of, you know, I think that in terms of looking at it honestly, and last year, I think they snuck out some wins that, you know, maybe, you know, they were surprised that they did, you know, and it turned out to be a really good season for them. And, yeah, I think they kind of pumped the brakes, said, hey, look, we still got some holes, you know, and this year may not go as well as it did last year. So I think, you know, it's easy for fans to kind of jump off the bridge, you know, after a Tennessee game. Like,
please don't do that.
You know,
we encourage none of that.
Well, yeah. He said, look, don't do it for real, okay, people?
Yeah, jump off the bandwagon if you want, but not the bridge.
Bandwagon's a little less steep than the bridge. Just depends on which bridge you want to jump off of. But, hey, yeah, I mean, I know recruits, you know, look, it's one game. We'll see what Missouri does the rest of the season. You know, they've got a nice little, you know, pick-me-up game against North Texas. You hope it's a pick-me-up game. And, you know, look, they've got a tough SEC schedule the rest of the season. You know, Vanderbilt looks like a possible win, you know, but other than that, man, it's gonna be pretty tough. But it's just one game. I don't think people need to, you know, recruiting-wise, you know, I don't think recruits are really going to pay attention to it right now, you know, just because of that Tennessee game. I think they're going to wait and see what they look like the rest of the season because, look, every week's a little bit different. You make some changes. You might, you know, string together 3 wins in a row. You just never know how seasons go. That's the thing about football that makes it so cool is because, you know, one week you look bad, the next 2 weeks you might look really good, you know, so.
And look, I think anybody would say this. None of us wants to be judged on our worst day. Right. And I think Saturday, I don't know how it can be worse than what Missouri put on the field Saturday. So I'm sure the coaches are saying, hey, don't judge us on that. Look, yeah, we're 2-3, but those other 2 losses, we were right there with, you know, fringe top 25 teams. So the game we played Saturday is not us. That said, it was so bad that it was one of those days that at least made me think, look, I don't think this game alone causes anybody to decommit or causes anybody to take Missouri off the list, but I do think it made Eli Drinkwitz's sales pitch a little bit harder, you know, because it is now a little bit, hey, you know, Coach, this was game 15, and man, it was really bad. So I think it's maybe a little more difficult to sell it, but I don't think by any means it's impossible to sell it.
Right, and we were talking before we went live. I mean, it's, you know, you fire Jethro Franklin, who you brought in. You got rid of Brooke Haley, and now you bring in Jethro Franklin. You fire him after 5 games, you know. So, man, that's tough. And you look, Eli Drinkwitz, you know, look, you know he's on the phone. He probably so what he talked to all these commitments, all their top targets, you know, after this game, you know, because look, he does a super good job. The whole staff does a really good job of recruiting. communicating, the firing of Franklin, and just kind of putting some positive vibes on the commitments and the top targets moving forward. So he's already been on the phone doing all that to the recruits and everything. So
let's talk about that just a little bit. Anytime you fire a position coach, hey, that might give some kids some second thoughts. Now, Missouri doesn't exactly recruit just positionally. Obviously they've got Jalen Marshall on the defensive line. They've got Marquise Graciel, and I know I'm missing one. I know there's one more that I can't think of in this class. But it's not just those kids. Like Marquise's lead recruiter is actually DJ Smith.
Exactly.
Franklin certainly has been involved. I'm not saying that there is no impact, but there's nobody we've really seen in this class where we know, and obviously this wouldn't have happened, but let's say after a Caleb Evans commits last year, if Aaron Fletcher had left, well, Evans is gone. He's not coming here because he was coming here because of Fletcher. We don't know of anybody that's necessarily the case here with Jethro Franklin, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no. I'm talking to Jalen Marshall when he committed. He mentioned Franklin, but obviously, things are a little bit different with him. He showed up, went through the workout, and then came back for a visit. And everything just kind of transpired from there. But look, we mentioned with every commitment in this class, it's pretty much a group effort. And it might be a positional coach you mainly talk to. It may be the area coach you mainly talk to. But look, they all every one of them mentions at least 2 or 3 coaches they talk to, and that includes Drinkwitz, on a regular basis. So it's really a group effort with this whole staff, and so that's why I think it's maybe a little bit less of an impact that Franklin's gone. Now, obviously, it is an impact. When you talk about guys like Marshall and Gracial, that's your position coach that you're kind of comfortable with, and you've been comfortable with for a while. So now what's going to happen with that moving forward? So you've got to kind of communicate what your plan is moving forward with that. And I'm sure, like I said, Drinkwitz and his staff has probably already done that, especially with those 2 guys and probably with the rest of the commitments as well,
Want to get to some of the questions we've had here early on, and Justin asked, with Benke and Robledo not getting in games, curious how many defensive tackles they'll take in this class. It seems really thin right now. So, look, they're losing Akil Byers. They're losing Kobe Whiteside after this year. And that is a concerning thing that, Benke and Daniel Robledo don't see the field. And Drinkwitz was pretty clear early in camp because we asked him about Realus George and Daniel Robledo, and he said, look, you bring junior college guys into play. Realus George is playing. Robledo is not. Benke, obviously, at this point, we're a year and a half in. I'm not sure he's had defensive snaps with the full roster, so it's kind of unreasonable to expect that at any point he will. Those almost look right now like just kind of wasted spots in classes, and you might have to go get an extra defensive tackle, maybe even in the transfer portal, because defensive tackle is not a place you come in as a freshman and play a lot in the SEC. Mekhi Wingo being an exception, obviously.
Right, exactly. I think, just in terms of just the vibe and just seeing who they've been offering of late, they have offered a couple of defensive tackles. We've talked about Dominic Orange being a possibility, out of Kansas City, and we also talked about, I can't think of this kid's name off the top of my head, but the kid from Peachtree, Georgia, he's got Missouri in his top 5. I know he said he wants to come visit. I think he's going to make a decision later this month in October. I think it's the 22nd or 23rd. I know he wants to visit Missouri and Auburn before he makes that decision. So there's another defensive tackle they're after. Defensive end, look, it seems like they're going to at least add a defensive tackle and a defensive end from the high school ranks. And like you said, Gabe, I think it's disappointing when you got 2, kind of JUCO kids come in and they're not seeing the field anytime soon. So you probably are going to try to get one more defensive tackle from the transfer portal that can come in and actually make an impact.
That's what I was going to say. I think it's got to be transfer portal, because with the new rules now, Missouri's going to take 20 to 25 in this class. But now 7 kids that transfer out, and I'm not saying they'll have 7, but up to 7 kids can be replaced. So you could theoretically sign 32 guys next February. And look, defensive tackle, I think, has to be a spot that you're looking for one, and I think maybe even 2 portal guys, because you got Darius Robinson, who you hope gets healthy and makes an impact. You got Wingo, you've got Realus George. But then what else really is there other than, incoming freshmen, and you just can't count on those guys. I think you're going to have to go grab one, if not two, in the transfer portal and they've got to be. Look, they can't be. It can't be Rice and Montana. It's got to be guys that can come in and play right away, right?
Yeah, I mean, you would think just looking at guys. Yeah, you probably don't want to grab guys from FCS or G5 schools. You want to grab a grad transfer coming from a Power 5 program
or a major
Power 5 program,
right? Or a kid who, hey, maybe he was a third stringer at the Power 5 program he was at and he's not playing, but he's good enough to be a first or second stringer with where your program's at now here. I mean,
right.
Maybe a kid and it doesn't have to be from Ohio State or Georgia. Maybe there's a kid at Pittsburgh that's not playing a lot, but he'd improve your defense,
Right. I think that's the thing, with SEC, and you mentioned it, there's not a lot of people behind those three guys, from Missouri and depth-wise. And you need a ton of depth on the defensive line, especially defensive tackle, defensive end. You need to rotate guys in, man, if you're going to survive in the SEC. And just to have those two, I mentioned Ben Key and Robledo not playing. I mean, that's tough, because you expect those guys to come in and at least be rotational guys and depth guys, but they're not seeing the field at all.
Yeah. Justin also said they were recruiting Deion Walker on the offensive line, but now stating he would like to play defensive tackle. He's visiting now. Do we know if Missouri has kind of made that switch to recruiting him as a defensive player? And Sean, I don't know. I think I posted on Saturday night that he's slated to visit for the Texas A&M game, and I don't think we've talked to him since then. But here's what you tell every single kid you're recruiting. What position do you want to play? Cool, that's the position we're recruiting you for. And maybe that changes 10 minutes after he signs, but that's where you tell him you're recruiting him.
I think all options are on the table with a guy like him. I mean, obviously, Walker's huge. I mean, he's a big guy, so I know Missouri liked him at offensive tackle, whenever they were recruiting him during the summer. And, we hadn't heard a lot from him, whether he's going to come back or not. But then, obviously, he is coming back. So that's a good thing for Missouri. And if he's open to playing defensive line, you say, hey, man, you'll get a chance to play both. Wherever you want to play, just come sign with us and help us out.
And because they don't really need another offensive tackle in this class. They've got 4 offensive linemen. They've got the 2023 class out there. So, look, if he says, I want to play offensive tackle, then cool. You tell him he's playing offensive tackle. And if he says he wants to be the kicker, then you tell him he's the kicker. Whatever it takes, man. That's what recruiting is not about. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're right. And like I said, you tell them whatever you want to. You say, hey, man, you want to play kicker? Great. And then when, training camp starts, like, hey, I know you want to play kicker. That's cool. You went out there and made a couple kicks, but hey, how about try defensive tackle?
Yeah. The fact is recruiting is not about telling the truth. It's about making kids believe what you're telling them is the truth. That's just a fact. Colby wants to know, are any of Sam Horn's teammates that have offers coming with him this weekend? I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to Sam in advance of his visit this weekend or not, but I don't know. It'd be great if Travis Hunter was making the trip, but I don't get any indication that's happening.
I don't know about Travis Hunter. Obviously, Missouri just offered a couple of his underclassmen teammates, the safety and the linebacker. It's possible. I haven't reached out. Sam Horn's very hard to get a hold of. He's very, he stays very, very close to the vest and doesn't do a lot of interviews and things like that, especially with us recruit heads. So he's got a good head on his shoulders. I was happy that. When I reached out to him and went down there during the spring, he got back to me and he was happy enough to do that interview, and I was glad he did it. And so, but I haven't really heard back from him any other times I've kind of reached out to him after that. I think he just wants to keep everything low key. He's not like a big. I want to do a ton of interviews. I don't want a lot of hype around my stuff and anything like that. But yeah, I think it's very possible. Like I said, the reason he's coming in for North Texas is because they have a bye week that week. So, with Missouri just offering those 2 underclassmen kids, it's possible they could come with him. But obviously, Sam's going to be on an official visit, so that's going to be a little bit different for those kids. So, I would say I doubt it because, that'll be an official visit for Sam.
That's what I was going to say because the rules for anybody who is listening to this or watching doesn't understand. On an official visit, the school pays for the transportation for you and I believe 2 other people. On an unofficial visit, that's not the case. So my guess is that Sam Horn and his parents probably have plane tickets from Missouri to fly into Columbia, whereas any teammates, especially underclassmen that are coming, they would have to pay their own way.
Pay
So
their
they're
own
either
way.
driving or paying for their own plane ticket. So it's just not probably a situation where guys are going to come along with Sam. Again, and we need to figure out in the next couple days, obviously, and get absolute clarification on this. But it has been reported that Luther Burden is going to be in town with him this weekend. We don't know that to be fact. We have not heard that from Luther or anybody at East St. Louis. But obviously, we do need to get that ironed out, and we'll have that information by Friday morning in the chamber. But that would certainly be a big deal. I think it would be. I don't want to say it would be telling if he's not here, because I can't promise that the initial report was correct, right? Last Thursday night, there was a report that some SMU commitment was visiting Missouri officially, and then by the end of the night, I had clarified, no, that's not happening.
Right.
Reports can be incorrect. If Luther is not here this weekend, it's not necessarily a sign that like he canceled a visit or anything. It's probably not a sign of anything more than somebody got a report wrong. But it would be good if he was here for Missouri fans, I would think.
Yeah, like I said, we've been talking about the last 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks ago, you probably brought it up that it would be a great idea that, if he came in the same weekend Sam Horn's here, they get to sling it around a little bit and say, hey, man, we could score 70 points together, because it's probably what it's going to take to win some games here.
70 might have won last weekend. Just last couple individual kids. Everybody freaked out about a Marquise Gracial tweet. We don't know if that was about recruit. We don't know what that was about at this point, right? Or whether he's got any bad feelings about Missouri or anything else.
I mean, I don't know if it was about that news, but I mean, obviously, we talked about it. We mentioned it earlier. Whenever you get comfortable with your position coach and recruiting, and then you see he gets fired, I mean, I'm sure it kind of sucks for him, because like, hey, there's a guy that was supposed to be my position coach I was comfortable with, and one of the reasons I committed to Missouri, and now, he's been fired. So, but like I said, I'm sure the first thing, one of the first things Drinkwood's done after handling all that was call, you definitely want to call guys like Gracial and Marshall, that are D-line commits in your class, and just kind of talk to them about it, and, kind of put together a plan, and just kind of openly talk about your reasoning for it and what your moves are moving forward in that regard. So
Ryan says that I guess Gentry Williams just posted he was committing on October 18th, and Mizzou is in his top 4. Do they really have a shot at him?
I'm going to say that's probably going to be Oklahoma.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen who the top 4 is. My guess would be Oklahoma, USC, and, well, I'm not sure USC with the coaching change, and Florida are probably in there. I just really have a shot at him? Not in my opinion. I'd be very surprised. I mean, I don't think there's been a lot of communication. He hasn't visited again that I know of.
No, I think he might have visited late July,
like with a teammate or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I think all signs kind of point to him going to Oklahoma. I will go back to Gracial. We've talked a lot about Alabama, and I think you mentioned it in the chamber, or we mentioned it in the chamber last week.
Right.
But Alabama, I know that's a team that he said he was going to take an official visit to. We haven't really seen anything come up that he's going to be there anytime soon. So, I don't know where the interest level lies between Alabama and him right now. So, I don't think you got to worry about that too much. But we'll see what happens as the season goes on.
All right, well, Sean, we'll let you run, man. I got a couple basketball things I'm going to get to, but you don't care about that, so.
Oh, well, I mean, I could sit here and listen, but, you know.
I mean, you can if you want, but you don't have to.
But yeah, throw up Brandon's picture and promote him a little bit more. That'd be a lot more helpful.
All right, good deal. Thanks, man. We'll talk to you.
All right, later.
All right, that is Sean Williams, and now on the screen that is Brandon Barnes, as he mentioned. And, so there was a basketball question here, and I do want to get to that before we run here, and I go over and cover Eli Drinkwitz's press conference. Zach says, it seems like 2023 could be a great class for basketball. Is there a good chance they could get all 4 scholarships filled with the guys you listed, or are they going to want to hit the transfer portal? So a couple things. If you haven't been on the site, Joel Lorenzi put together kind of an initial target board for the 2023 class. There were 6 or 7 guys on it. There will be more. That is just kind of the initial list of, hey, here's who Missouri's offered. This is kind of the A list of ideally they would love to get 3 or 4 of these guys. Is there a good chance they're going to fill the class with 4 of those 7 guys? No, not really. I mean, that's just being honest, right? We see that this is how every recruiting cycle goes, and it's not just football, it's not just basketball, it's not just Missouri. But at the beginning, they throw out like the A-list offers. In basketball, it's usually like 6 to 10 guys. In football, it's probably closer to like 80 to 100. And the early offers, and everybody starts to look at, fans start to look at the best case scenario. Hey, man, all these kids are ranked in the top 100. Just think, if we could get all those kids, what a great class it would be. Well, it's just not realistic. I mean, is Missouri going to get 4 guys off the list of 7 that we put out there? Probably not. Other schools have offered those kids too. They have a lot of options, taken a lot of official visits. If Missouri could get 2 of those 7 kids, I think it would be incredibly successful. And they're absolutely going to hit the transfer portal. I mean, that's part in football, but it's even a bigger part in basketball. I would be stunned if Conzo Martin has a single class that doesn't include a transfer going forward. Every single year, there are going to be transfers out there. There were well over 1,000 in college basketball last year. So, and that number is probably low, to be quite honest. But no, they're not going to get 4 of those 7 guys, to be honest. They may get none of those 7 guys, honestly. I mean, and that doesn't mean they failed or anything like that. Doesn't mean it can't be a good class. It's just very early in the process. These are the guys that have the earliest offers. And there will be, this will evolve as things go on. Some of those kids will commit other places. Some other kids will pop onto Missouri's radar, and that list is going to change a lot. That is just kind of version 1 of 9 versions probably of that board that we will do over the course of this recruiting class. So, hey, appreciate you guys joining us this morning, and we wanted to take it a little bit more big picture because there's not a lot of individual stuff to talk about right now, and really the thought on everybody's mind was, oh my God, is this going to kill the recruiting class going forward? So we wanted to spend this morning kind of addressing that a little bit. As I said, I am headed over with Mitchell Forty to cover Eli Drinkwitz's press conference here in about an hour. We will have that up on the site this afternoon. We'll have the 573 report tomorrow, the opposition show on Thursday, and some picks on Friday. So one more shout out, Brandon Barnes there. As Sean said, we want to reserve a minute at the end of the show to encourage you all to reach out to him. Hey, I bet he even has some thoughts on what Missouri could do different defensively. Now, that shouldn't be the reason you call him. The reason you call him should be, hey, Brandon, I need some help with a mortgage. I need to get a loan for my house. What can you do for me there? And he's absolutely going to take care of you there. He's got all kinds of expertise, fantastic customer service. He's always available. And he is going to hook you up with the best rates you can find in the state of Missouri. But then, hey, midway through the conversation, maybe say, yo, Brandon, I know you played some linebacker and safety. What happened there against Tennessee? I bet Brandon's got some thoughts. Maybe he can help you out with 2 things with 1 call. So give Brandon a call there, 818-2772 or 590-0001. Email is bbarnes@usa-mortgage.com. Website, showmemortgage.com. You can get an online estimate there. So do any of those things and give Brandon a shot to earn your business. He would appreciate it, and we would appreciate it. So that's a lot of appreciation if you just do that. Thanks for watching, guys. Speaking of appreciation, definitely thank you to all you guys that are here live. If you are watching live, do us a favor, hit the like button on the show. Even if you're watching the replay, just hit the like button. That helps more people find us. If you're listening on the podcast, give the podcast a 5-star review, leave a comment, follow us on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podbean, whichever app you use to get your podcast. We are available almost everywhere. So thanks. We will be back with plenty of stuff this afternoon, and then back live with the video tomorrow afternoon on the 573 report with Mitchell Forty. We'll talk to you then.